Now we move away from athletics, we get into some football action, and it's all about Gor Mahia. The coach, that is John Mckinistry, is hoping to bag another title this season. Today they're playing Muranga Seal at 3 p.m. and early on in the week, Ivy Terry caught up with him when they were in training at M-Pesa Foundation in Thika, and he says that he enjoys coaching Gor Mahia and he hopes that they can sail through and win another title this season.
On Inside Sports today, we have Gor Mahia head coach John Mckinistry. He won the league with them last season. This season, he's almost also close to winning it. They are currently at 57 points, and the second. Kenya Police are 48 points. They're coming into second place. They have 7 matches to play. I'll be speaking to him to just get to understand how he keeps his dominance and how he's been surviving in Kenya. Welcome so much to Inside Sport, Coach.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations for winning last season. This season, things are also looking good for you. How do you manage to keep this together?
I think it's just always about remembering that, not sort of celebrating your successes for too long. We say that to the boys, this is a long life. Hopefully by the time we're all 60 or 70 years of age, we can look back at the photographs and the memories and the trophies and the medals. But if you focus too much on those things right now, then your competitors have time to gain an advantage on you. And so for us, the very moment that we win, we start preparing for the next one. Even an ironic story about last season, the day we won the championship against Nairobi City Stars, everyone was celebrating in the dressing room afterwards, and when I finally arrived into the dressing room after my media duties, the first thing I did was get hold of one of our executive committee members and remind him that there was 3 players that we needed to sign. We needed to get contracts done and sign these players within the week. So everyone else was still celebrating, popping the champagne, so to speak. Whereas for me, 5 minutes after winning one championship, it was focusing on how can we win the next championship.
Who is the toughest opponent you faced in the QPL?
Oh, there's lots of tough opponents in the KPL. Every game is incredibly difficult. Obviously, our main rivals, the likes of Police and Tusker, are always, and Bandari are always very difficult games. KCB have given us a very difficult time since I've come here. We haven't beaten KCB since I've arrived here, whereas I think we've probably beaten every other team in the KPL. So probably you could say KCB in that sense, but I also think we've played really well in those games and deserve to take 3 points more often than not. It just hasn't happened for one or other reason. So, yeah, but every game, doesn't matter whether teams are at the top of the league or at the bottom of the league, teams come to compete, and they always add an extra 10% when they're playing Gor Mahia because they know it's sort of the blue ribbon game of the season.
How can you compare club coaching and national team coaching? Because you came from Uganda Cranes, and perhaps people could have thought maybe that was a degrading, but was this an avenue for you to bounce back? And how can you just compare the coaching to a national team and now a club?
Coaching international football and coaching club football are actually very different jobs. The act of coaching on a grass field is obviously the same, but the way you manage your week, the way you manage your season is very, very different. Obviously, in club coaching, you're with your players every single day. The camaraderie, the rapport you build up with people happens a lot faster because you see each other, 20, 25 hours a week, and you get to know people's personalities and you get to help them in different ways. At international level, you see your players face to face maybe 5 days a month. And so that has its challenges. There's a lot more stuff done over the telephone, over WhatsApp, these type of modern technologies, and so building chemistry takes longer at national team level, but equally at national team level you have more time to prepare. When you've got a game in 3 weeks' time, by the time you get your players into training camp, know everything about your opponents because you've been able to forensically analyze them. Whereas in club football, you've got a game every 7 days, every 3 days if there's a midweek game, and so your time to prepare for those matches is a lot shorter, and so you have to balance on, well, how is my time and how's my staff's time best spent when we don't have a lot of it. So they're very different jobs, I find, and both equally enjoyable in different ways. But yeah, look, I coming to Gor Mahia was a great challenge. Obviously, stepping into the job, the team were at a very low point. You know, the club chairman, Mr. Rashir, told me when I arrived that this was probably the most difficult period in the last 20 years for the club, in terms of the transfer ban, in terms of having to promote so many players from the youth team, and really there was hardly any expectations. You got to remember, in previous years the team had finished 3rd and 8th respectively, well off the pace. But for me, that was a challenge that I sort of met with gusto, so that we could go and sort of attack last season. And our motto last season was, let's see what's possible. Let's push and see what's possible. And when we got to the back end of it, we saw that everything was possible. And to win it on the last day of the season with what was an incredibly young team last year was a bit of a fairy tale season, really.
You're the top scorer currently in the KPL. Sorry, Benson Omala is your striker. He's currently linked with Azam. He was linked with Algeria. It failed. He's now currently linked with Azam. Losing such a player for a coach like you, how does it feel?
The nature of being a top performing player in any league is that you'll be linked with other clubs, you know, but as we've known many times, you know, many of our players, because we have some very good players at this football club, many of our players get linked with many clubs throughout the season. The nature of it is, it often tends to be a journalist or a blogger wanting to get clicks on the internet. You know, there has been no approach for him. Again, if there is, we'll deal with it. What's good for the club, what's good for the player. But, you know, Benson's a top talent, but we've got a lot of top talents, and that's the nature of it. When you're playing well, when you're scoring goals, when you're getting man of the match awards, then you're going to attract attention, and that just means we're doing well as a club and as a team.
How can you rate the KPL, Kenya Premier League, right now? And do you think there's something that needs to be done to just restore the KPL to its former glory?
I think it's coming back. There's no doubt. If you go back a decade, the KPL was the leading league in the region. You know, it was ahead of Tanzania, ahead of Uganda, ahead of Rwanda and Ethiopia. You know, both with some challenges pre-COVID, and then the COVID pandemic itself really sort of made the league not just take 1 or 2 steps back, but maybe 3 or 4 steps backwards. And so we are building back. You know, I look at this season compared to last season, we've taken positive steps forward as a league. You're seeing now, instead of there being 1 or 2 teams being really serious about trying to compete for the championship, there's 4 or 5, you know, really competing, really investing in their squads. What I would like to see, and I think is really important, is the investment in facilities. Obviously, we know Kasarani, the new Talanta Hela Stadium, the Nyayo Stadium are all getting investment, but that's Nairobi, that's not Kenya. You know, and we've got to make sure that facilities all around the country, you go out to like the new Homa Bay facility, the stadium, the Raila Odinga Stadium, and that's a really good facility. We need those facilities in every region of Kenya, so that when we have those facilities, both for match play and for training, it means we can develop better grassroots talent. It means the youth structure, the Division 1 structure, the Premier League structure can have higher quality gameplay on higher quality surfaces, but that takes time and money. But there has to be a commitment to it that, yes, it's nice to have a 60,000 seater stadium here in Nairobi, but what about the stadiums in Mombasa? What about the stadiums in Kakamega? What about the stadiums in Bungoma? You know, we need to have facilities in all of these areas, and when we do that, I think you can have a league of 16 or 18 really competitive teams.
Lastly, Coach, just also take us through it. You've been here for 2 years now. Just give us a brief description of your life in Kenya, the challenges maybe you've encountered before you even gelled with the team. Your first days here. Now, everything is going. You're on the verge of winning the league back-to-back. How has that been for you?
Time spent here has been very good. You know, the people at this club in general are very good. The players are great characters. You know, I think I've done this many times now. You know, the idea of coming into a new club or a new team, I think Gor is my 6th professional side to coach. And so it's not uncommon for me to arrive, to know nobody, to be the new person, you know, from a different country, from a different culture. But I I enjoy and I'm very good at acclimatizing myself into the community, into the culture. But I'm also a very personable person. So I think for some of my players, it's probably new for them, a coach who wants to be so close to them, who wants to understand their lives, who wants to take interest in the good and the bad things that are happening for them and to help where I can. And so I think we built a very close relationship very early on. And that means when you come to difficult moments on or off the pitch, people are willing to fight for you. If you've built that close relationship, you know, and I'm a football person, so in terms of my life in Kenya, you know, it's 95% football. It really is. You know, Nairobi's a wonderful city. It's a big city, but I can't lie to you and say I've seen lots of it, because for me it's how do we win? How do we win the next game? How do we win the next tournament? And at the end of my time here, that's how we'll judge it, is on how successful we've been on the pitch.
What are your future plans at Gor Mahia?
We want to progress. It's always the same. You know, for me, I say the same thing to our executive committee. I say it to our players and our staff all the time, is that it's about being better than yesterday. That's all we can judge ourselves on. Are we better than we were yesterday? We're in a race against ourselves. And so even for this season, we didn't look outside to what other teams were doing. We looked at what we did last season. How many points did we get? How many wins did we get? How many goals did we score, etc. And we said, can we do better than that on a team basis? On individual basis, again, we said to players, here's what you did last season. Can you move that needle forward to be personally even 1%, 5% better than you were last season? So for us, you know, if you set big grandiose plans of, well, we've got to win this or we've got to qualify for that, those are very sort of black and white. They're very binary objectives. Whereas if we simply set out every day to try and improve, then I think at the end of the journey, wherever that is, you know, whenever our time together ends, you know, in 1 year, in 5 years, whatever that happens to be, can we be further down that road of development and success than we were the day I arrived? And we're on that journey. We've made a good start to it, but we've got to keep pushing. And yeah, can we be better than we were yesterday? Just every day.
Thank you so much, Coach, for joining us on Inside Sports, and I wish you all the best.
That